Without further ado, I want to introduce our speakers this morning, two longtime KMers. As APQC's inaugural fellow in KM, Cindy Hubert is responsible for building on the organization's rich legacy and ensures their offerings are aligned to member needs with the changing demands of the marketplace and through the development of innovative products, doing fantastic research, and having wonderful training. She wrote, along with APQC Chairman Carla Odell, a book called The New Edge in Knowledge. She's going to chat with Kim Glover, who has several decades of experience in communications, marketing, project management, digital engagement, change management, and KM. She's the winner of the KM World 2017 Reality Award and has led lots of initiatives. They are going to share their discussion today around KM, experts, and AI, learning from leaders. Please welcome them to our stage.
Thank you, Jane.
I'm going to get myself organized.
Get yourself organized.
Yes, there we go.
I know. Organization is important.
It is.
Thank you, Jane.
Yes. Whoa!
Wow.
Don't you love introductions?
I do, and then now we don't have to introduce ourselves.
I know. So look, I'm going to go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to the next slide.
I've got controls today.
Yeah, she's the boss. I'm here to amplify this amazing research that she's done. You're going to hear more about APQC. Let me just say about Technique FMC that I'm not here officially representing the company, but I'm here as a longtime practitioner and user of all the incredible things that APQC has been putting out for years and years and years, including that book, which, by the way, when it came out, Cindy,
oh my gosh, a long
our
time
program,
ago.
2011, our program matched what you had in the book, because what we were already doing, we said, yay! And what we weren't doing yet, we started the next day.
Oh my gosh, that's validation. Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome. It's true.
Kim, got to show you the next picture. So Kim and I do go back a ways. Where she really got my attention, I called her about 10 years ago and said, hey, we're going to do something different at our conference. We are going to have members talk, and we want it in the form of a TED Talk. Will you do it? And she said, well, of course, Cindy, I will. And then tell them what you did.
And then I hung up the phone and went, whoa, really loud, and all my team came running, and we're like, we're in, we're in.
So but the point is, Kim has always been a great trailblazer. She's been a benchmark for us in knowledge management. And I just told someone, I said, it's very risky to talk about knowledge management, emerging technologies, AI, experts in a room full of experts of all those things. So you guys bear with us. We have a lot of examples, but this picture, I actually last year, last year, it's 2024, 2023. COVID, I forget the COVID years. Those are just not, I don't even count them in my age, you know.
They're gone.
So my niece told me I could do that. Anyways, I went out to see Kim. We just hadn't connected, and I said, God, I want to come out to the offices. I haven't been there. I want to see what all you've done. And so we had a really great time, talked about a lot of things, lots of serendipitous type things that had brought our worlds together, knowledge management being that central force for all of it. And then Kim took me by their fellow wall. Their fellow program was fairly new, and it was very well articulated. It was up on this beautiful wall, very much like that, their core values. And I walked out and I went, maybe I need to repot. Now, repotting is good at APQC. Our founder, Jack Grayson, always said, when you need to grow and bloom, yesterday, Dan, you'd repot yourself. And I came back and I looked at our CEO. I said, I think I need to repot. I think I need to do. She said, well, what do you want to do? And I didn't say, I want to be a fellow. I did not say that. I said, I want to do these things that Jane described. And that is what actually happened. And I got excited about it. I called Kim back. It happened very quickly. And we got really excited because we said it may be a really good force, and this is what our CEO, Lisa Higgins, said, to set an example for the world of our knowledge management audience, you leaders, you experts, to really create a role like this, that more industry will do that and recognize their technical fellows in knowledge management.
Absolutely. Can we all aspire to that in our careers?
There you go.
Can we bring this idea back home? Can we
That's it.
benefit from it?
Absolutely.
I have to say, we have papers because when we're sitting, which
You
we
can't
may, we
see.
can't see the slides.
Yeah.
So we're not going to read to you, but our papers will help us stay on track.
Absolutely.
Don't
You
you
want to
think?
build on anything on that?
I just want to say that when Cindy and I talked, it was that magic that you're probably getting here as well. We talked about lifelong learning and the things we still want to achieve. And we talked about the intersectionality of knowledge management and adjacent disciplines. Thank you, Linda, like change management and communications and project management and AI and digital now. And it was really rich. And I think what you're going to talk about today and your research will reflect some real interesting points.
Absolutely. I hope so. You want to sit down?
I think we
All right, so we're going to have a conversation, and we'd like for you guys to join in if you so choose. We may stand up, we may move within you in the audience. But here's our agenda today. So we're going to, as said, bring together, there's a lot of things converging for the field of knowledge management. There's the emerging technologies that have more power than they have ever had before. There's this whole notion of experts. And here's what I think is so exciting about where we are today. I think we finally have a grasp, a maturity, if you will, that is going to really let us accelerate our efforts and maybe set a new benchmark for where we are today. I think KM always has to set a benchmark, and I'm going to tell all my AI experts and gurus out there, you guys always lead the way, but it gives us an opening. It opens the window for us for a short time where we get a lot of new interest, we get our stakeholders interested, and I think we finally learned how to partner with you guys. So that's what our talk is going to be about. It's a little bit risky. We're going to be going through some research, and we're going to start with the Take 5. You want to tell them what a Take 5 is?
Yes, so you saw the picture of our core values and foundational beliefs wall. At Technique FMC, we start all of our meetings that have 4 or more people and last an hour or more with some kind of reminder or connection to our core values and foundational beliefs. So building trust, achieving together, and realizing possibilities was on that wall. And the Take 5 moment that Cindy's going to talk about is some things that you should look out for.
Absolutely. So I have to admit, I like disruptions and distractions. These are a few from our 2024 predictions and priorities. So I'm going to shoot a lot of data at you in the next couple of slides and therefore, but to go forward. And these were some of the top ones that came forward, and they're probably not surprising to you all. And if you want more information, more data, Linda Broxek, raise your hand. Linda Broxek leads our research for knowledge management at APQC. Come see her. She'll give you the depth behind all of these. I'm going to skim it for you. But I think, I told Kim earlier, I said, you know, you start finding things out about yourself as you go down life's pathways. And what I found out about myself pretty kind of midway is that I'm really good in first responder situations. I'm real dramatic, I must admit. My husband said, just because you wear full stage makeup doesn't mean you have to be dramatic like you are. I am, in normal life, I am. People who know me, I'm just animated, I like things, I like people, and so I'm pretty dramatic. But in disruptions, I calm down. I get real centered, I get really focused. And so I think my message to you is, you've got to embrace some of these disruptions along the way. How many of you, I'm going to come back to AI and data privacy, how many of you, raise your hands, if you're going through something that would be called a transformation, organizational restructuring,
Actually,
cultural,
I'm going to raise both hands.
Leadership, job changes, okay, a lot of you. I probably should have said who's not, and then we should have talked to them, yeah. So that's it. So what I feel like knowledge management does in all of this, and what I've observed, is that we start helping people connect. It's what we really do well as a discipline. So when you're transforming and doing something, knowledge management helps you transition through those hard transformations and get you to where you need to be and keep people connected. Same thing with social issues, global issues. We all have those hitting us. Just being a parent these days, I'm not one, but I think it looks tough to me. But just looking at the pandemic, we were so proud of so many of our knowledge management programs because they really rose to the occasion. They were there, their communities connected, gave people emotional, mental support through all of this. That's what it's all about. It goes back to the humans, of course. And then, of course, the pace of change. And my technology partners out there, you guys are driving that pace right now. When we're just trying to keep up with you, and there's no way we can. I don't know, is Sue Hanley in the audience? I don't know if she's here. Sue, I want you to come talk to my IT department because she gave this crisp example of all the things just the MS Suite could do, and I thought, we only use 10% of those. Whoops, we should do something. And then you get back to the AI thing, the AI play. And there is no doubt that AI is driving a lot of emotions. I was telling you that last night. Whether it's fear, anxiety, excitement, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of buzz around this, and we're all wanting to grasp it. And so the message in this is just, it's there. You're not going to change it. It's just our normal these days, and you're going to have to lean into it. All right. So with that said, a little bit more data for you. Let me talk a little bit about AI, a little bit about KM, 2 slides. So these are the top benefits that KM benefits, that we feel like when you deploy AI, you're going to see our members are seeing. And by the way, APQC is a membership organization. There are many of you who are members. We have 2 classes of members. You're either a member or you're a future member. There's no other thing. That's it. So if you're not a member today, but we do this with our members, and Linda ran this. As I said, she has the 2025 one out right now, so it'll be interesting to see how it changes. But I think you look at a lot of the benefits that you see there, and there's not a lot of surprises. Did any of it surprise you, or is Technique FMC seeing some of these
We
benefits?
are, but the thing that surprises me is that data wasn't higher, because data is a huge asset, and what you can do with that data to support your decisions is just amazing.
The better decision making.
So I would expect that to go up.
You think it may go up this year? Yeah. So it's not surprising, but as you can see, and we see also that people were anticipating to go along with this. There was a large percentage anticipating spending more on AI in the next 3 years, and this is from a predominantly knowledge management audience per se. Now, here's some other things that were interesting from that survey. The top priorities for KM. So again, really no surprise. You see up there that AI is wiggling its way up. We're still very interested in our critical knowledge and identifying it. But I want you to look at number 3. So let me tell you 3 things that happened when this came out. The first thing that happened when Linda shared with me almost a year, January of this year, she said, look at number 3, transferring expert knowledge. And I went, oh, good. I said, I think that it's important. I don't think we're really good at it yet. And she said, well, point number 2, she said, for the last 10 years, I went back and looked at it, and transferring expert knowledge is at least in the top 5. I said, really? I didn't realize that. And then my SEO guru, Ralph Marlborough, who is at APQC, came up to me just a day later and said, hey, Cindy, you know what the top search term is for knowledge management on Google? I said, no, knowledge transfer. So as you can imagine, Cindy got very interested about knowledge transfer. So and we've done this forever, so I'm really not going to tell you anything you don't know, but I hope what we do is challenge you in the way that you're thinking about transfer. So I'm going to do a couple of technical slides to just kind of get you all on the same page with me, because I think transfer is going to give us a new lease for my knowledge managers out there to really start thinking about how our systems, how we use AI in very thoughtful ways to propel us to the next level that knowledge management needs to go. So bear with me. We got a timer going, Jane. Okay. Have all of you seen, this is one of APQC's assets. It's called the APQC Knowledge Flow Process. If you haven't seen it before, I see nods out there. Some of you have gotten through it ad nauseum through our certification because we pound it in you. But it's my one slide that I love. It doesn't even really say knowledge management. But APQC believes that knowledge is about a flow. You help knowledge flow. We have a 7-step process. Knowledge management sort of circles the outer rim to help that knowledge flow. And around the edges, as you can see, there are a lot of capabilities that you need. You need partnerships to go along with all of those things. And so it sort of encapsulates knowledge management in one image. Now, we spend an awful lot of time, effort, money doing those things to identify, collect, curate, review, sharing. We have lots of community resources we apply, and trying to give people access. But what's the most important step on that wheel? Audience participation. People. But what's the important step? What? Use. Thank you. Yeah. Until knowledge gets used in an effective way, taking effective action and creating value, so it's an aha moment, it's not doing us any good. And so now you enter transfer, right? Because I went back and looked at it and said, there's not the word transfer on there at all. But yet, when you start thinking about just the notion of transfer, transferring my knowledge to Kim, eliciting my knowledge so that when I write it, somebody's eliciting, it writes down, I can put it somewhere. That's the whole notion of knowledge transfer. And it gets to be a really complex problem. And as we started looking at it about 10 months ago, we said, nobody's really got this nailed in the fact that they don't have systematic, sustainable, and scalable ways to transfer knowledge. Now, there are examples out there, but I'm talking on that big enterprise-wide, and it's hard because you have to know where people's teachable moment is. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but just knowing where people are most open to their learning, they can absorb, take it in, and actually use that knowledge. And so when you look at transfer in the context of this, I mean, we start transfer in every one of these steps. When you identify your experts and say, we want to get your knowledge, let's elicit it out of you, get it down on paper, put it in the standard operating procedures, get it somewhere, you start the process. You start the transfer process, and you hope that the expert is sitting there with an expert, and you start that cycle of transfer. But then it sort of disappears. And here's what I think, it's my hypothesis. I think knowledge management, the reason we didn't go down that path as strongly as we're saying we need to now, it's our new benchmark, because it's hard. We have to lose control when you start that whole access piece and you give people that access, and it's just hard to do. You don't know. It requires a lot of people, and we haven't looked. I think our single failure point for knowledge managers is that we haven't looked at transfer through the lens of learning and continuous improvement. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about how to start thinking about that in a little bit more in-depth way and push it forward. So enough about that. You want to say something about the flow process?
I think one of the key takeaways here is intentionality. It's the intentionality that knowledge management can bring to it that will make that transfer actually happen. And we haven't done that. We've tried, at least at our company, in fits and starts, but we're not there yet. But we do have a team, a crackerjack team, working on it right now.
It is. And I went back, Jane mentioned our chairman, Dr. Carla Odell, have been blessed to work with her for 3 decades. And she and our founder, Jack Grayson, talked about this, but they encapsulated it as the transfer of knowledge and best practices. And finally, I went back. I finally understood it. It only took me 30 years. But I went back. Oh, where's Dave Snowden? He figured it out a long time ago, yeah. So, but I finally went back and looked, and I said, it's because a practice encapsulates a lot of knowledge. It's why we lean into that, because we can put knowledge in there, and it's a little bit easier and more tangible to do that. Okay, so enough about that, but that's to get you in saying there's opportunities, and we need to think bigger picture on how we use our capabilities. So I want to bring a model up. Again, this model was introduced in 1995. Has anybody seen this before? It's called the Seki model. It's from a gentleman, Dr. Ikujuru Nanaka, lovely man, worked for Fuji Xerox, was the chair of knowledge at Berkeley back in the 90s. And this is his model just to describe how knowledge gets created, but I also think it's a model that we can look at, if you look at the center, to say how transfer actually happens. And so I think that we're actually a lesson or a case example from this conference. So we all come together and we share our tacit knowledge. We share what we know, and we have that socialization factor, and we externalize it by starting to have conversations and challenging ideas and what we do. Stan, you've done that to me this week. And then some of us write it down. Some of you are taking copious notes, you want the slides, and my assumption is that you are going to take it back and you're going to learn by doing, which is that bottom axis that helps you start internalizing it and putting into play. And it's just a simple example, but now put that on steroids for every single person in your organization. How are you going to do it, right? There's a systematic way that you have to think about transfer that is different than just sharing or collecting, curating. It's very different.
Exactly, and it looks clean on the model here, but it's very dynamic. It's happening with everyone all the time, and you pointed at Dave. Dave Snowden has helped us understand that it's extraordinarily complex and that it's highly dependent upon context and sense-making, and there are activities that you can do to bring that sense-making to life. But we'll go ahead and go to the next one.
We'll keep going. She's pushing me, Jane. I'm going to go. All right. So here's the good news. Everybody's staying with me now. Transfer's complex. Learning and transfer are ongoing, dynamic, interactive. You got to do all of that. So now, knowledge management, step forth. You got the goods.
We got the goods.
Yeah.
So let's just pick up a couple of these. We have strategic significance of knowledge and self-service approaches. At our company, one of the ways, or a couple of the ways that we accomplish this is through things that all of you have, I'm sure. You have communities of practice. I remember Carla Odell said once during a downturn for the oil industry, when many knowledge management teams were getting smaller, she said, when you're under attack, protect the base.
Absolutely.
Communities of practice are foundational. So strategic significance of knowledge. Do your communities have a charter? Do they pick which knowledge they want to focus on for their community? That's just one. In the interest of time, I'll hand it back.
Absolutely. Well, I think also, just to build on what Kim is saying, communities are a killer app. That's something else that Carla Odell said back in the day. And knowledge is sticky, right? We just said that. So these approaches, which bring the processes, the people, and support from our technology partners, these approaches really do help us make that wheel turn. And we're going to have to extend ourselves on all of these approaches to take it one more level to, if we want to watch transfer happen in a bigger, broader way and have it more systematic. And I'm not even purporting that you do it for everything, but I do think that knowledge management helps you hone in on really critical knowledge and helps you identify that with your stakeholders. And you start that whole engagement. I think Dan said yesterday, be the best. It's not about engagement, it's about making people be the best. And your knowledge is the best. It's your number one asset to help you really force field all of these things.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Just another quick one, thinking about sense making. Storytelling is a huge way to help that transfer happen in an organic but also intentional way.
Yes.
We've talked about storytelling a lot this week. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, John. And that's just another tactic, a strategic tactic.
That's a really big one, and it really builds into the learning. And notice at the bottom, process and learning. So when you can put knowledge where people are, we're all trying to do that. It makes it sticky. We talked about that, and getting it where they need to be. So that continuous improvement, looking at how lessons get embodied, embedded, and then updated, and you're not repeating the same mistakes. It's simple in talking about it, but it's much more complex in practice. And I think that's where you're really going to have to get serious, knowledge managers, about bringing your learning and continuous improvement into your dynamic flows.
Cindy, I heard something repeatable that you just said.
Oh, good.
Embodied, embedded, and updated. That sounds like another flow.
Did I say that?
You did say that.
Okay.
It was good. That's why I repeated it. I repeat stuff she says a lot, actually.
Yeah, she's so good. All right, so AI. So this is, again, man, we're with all these experts. So what was exciting for me, again, this is Linda's research. I always call it Linda's research because she's got the stuff, the depth on it. But this is always interesting. This is actually from our Emerging Technologies for Knowledge Management research, and we actually had a roundtable talk about it lots of experts talking about what they did. And so I think what I've heard from all of our technology experts over the last few days and going through the hall, you guys are recognizing this already. Do I see some nods from my AI guys that might be here? I mean, you're seeing some of these really good things happen, right? Yeah. I'm going to give some real simple things. I think for knowledge managers, what we're seeing with our members in our membership is that there's a little hesitancy to step in there. We are seeing partnerships happen. It's people are not really clear about, and I'm being very open and honest with you guys out there who are technology gurus. We're not really clear about how we can make this happen. We just know we have really good capabilities that AI can come in and really support. And so we're going to need some help. And I heard I read a great use of AI, simple generative AI. And I got it out of Sikkim, Stan, in your community chat. Somebody was saying, we are going to do a knowledge cafe, which we're getting ready to do. And then we're going to, after we collect everything and put it all together, we're going to feed it into a generative AI and see what we missed. And I thought, that's just a real simple thing, but it gets people started with an experiment to say, are we really getting some good things? And I don't know if you guys are doing some experiments.
All kinds
as
of
well.
experiments.
Everything's
As a
going on.
group, personally, a lot of fancy technical things I couldn't talk about as well.
Yeah.
But here's a simple one. I think locating experts is there.
Yeah.
I'm sure many of you have an experts program. We're going to ask that in a minute, aren't we?
We are.
We do as well, and the experts are tasked with writing their 100-word summary about their expertise. They're not very good at that. But if we want to find an expert, we can use our expert finder where that expertise is, but we can also point Gen AI all across our communities of practice and our wiki and say, show me everyone who's ever talked about welding these two kinds of parts or designing this kind of valve, and bring me that list of experts, and then get a rich summary of what they've talked about and help someone find the expert that they really need.
Absolutely.
That's a huge step forward. Search could do a little bit of that, but not like this.
Not like that.
Not like this.
So we have to be, I think, I want my AI partners here to be very mindful. I almost attacked Beth last night because she sat down with me at dinner, but I restrained myself just because it was her birthday today. But we have a lot of questions to ask, and that will be, if you'll just listen and hear what we want to do, I think it will also help you as you continue to improve your AI capabilities to help us. So it's a win-win.
Absolutely.
Value proposition.
Yes.
All right. Remember the human. So again, some more data for you. And this never fails me either. People want their knowledge delivered to them in the flow, proactively, while they're working. They want it simplified so they can understand it. And for transfer, context is everything. And that's why I think you have to be really careful when you start talking about transfer in a big systematic way. Yes, some things can be written down and people can find it and access it. And usually what I'm seeing is the routine things tend to be a little bit more repeatable faster, but your deep work and your deep knowledge are going to be a little bit tougher. And you're going to have to build that in a variety of ways, more in terms of training in the flow, mentoring in the flow, doing side-by-side job observation. Those are going to be things that you have to do. You have to work with people for that knowledge to really begin to seed in and get to be transferred so that they can apply it. It's learning by doing.
Absolutely, and this reminds me of something else that Carla Odell said, that the knowledge or the information that you need should be just for me, just in time,
Yes.
and just what I need.
Yes.
And I do think some of these AI tools can get us there closer.
It's
Get us
very
closer.
promising.
Yeah.
Very, very promising. So the teachable moment, I said this earlier, and this is, I think, one of the biggest complex moments as we start talking about transfer, and that is everyone's teachable moment is a little bit different. It's not the same. And we see organizations in our membership who are beginning to look at key roles. So experts are obviously one of those. We're going to talk about those. But you have to look and really define where you want to go after the teachable moment if you want to go broad. And then things will start building as you go. And we've got a couple of good models of people who are starting that. I heard Technique FMC, Tammy and Adrian were talking yesterday about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so there should be no one better to think about the teachable moment than the expert, because they've lived through it. They've gone through all of that, and yes, while they have got years of experience, they still have an understanding of how this has to happen.
Yes.
They just forget. They forget, so you have to remind them. So let's talk a little bit about experts.
Yeah. Let's ask our crowd question first.
Okay, go.
Does your company have an experts program? You may call it fellows. So just a few. Okay. If of those of you who, and your company may have it and you may not know, we realize that too. If your company has it, are you the team, the KM team, actively involved in supporting and nurturing those experts programs?
Raise your hand again, Tammy.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
That's where we want to be, right, Cindy? We want to be right up and embedded with those experts.
You have to. That is really, and it's really tough because
Yeah.
you have to, it has to be a purposeful strategy.
Yes.
So here's just a couple of ideas of things that you can start getting your experts engaged in terms of AI. And they may be already, you may not have a program, but your experts may be engaged. But certainly training the machines, asking the right questions, the prompt. I even took a prompt engineering little tutorial. Boy, was I not good at it. But it does make you realize that you have to have that expertise if you really want it to do, and that's where you turn to your AI partners. There's also making sure that you look at the quality of the outputs. I do that a lot. I'll put things in, and I do find that as I watch experts go back and look at that, there's a quality aspect that they bring to the outcomes and the outputs, as well as enriching the content, making it better, bringing that experiential knowledge in depth and into the actual document that you may be codifying, or the information you may be codifying, or as part of a training or a video. That's another way to do it. And then, of course, innovative thinking, right? Design thinking. Those are all very important aspects for the expert to follow through too.
And then there's the people aspect, right?
Yeah, there are.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think there's another level of experts expertise that is needed for our experts, and this is not always easy for them. I know I was working with one of our oil and gas members, and we put really top guys leading some community, guys meaning boys and girls, and we put them into key roles to lead, and we were doing some knowledge map. We were trying to identify critical knowledge with them. And it was almost unanimous. Every one of them would say, what knowledge do we need to do this? What knowledge do we have? Oh, everybody knows that. We took what they said and said to the next person, said, they said you know this. No, we don't. So there's a real disconnect between what the experts think they know. And so here's where I think you've got to think about all these other characteristics, skills, elements. There's a wisdom. If they will listen and enrich and really hear what is needed from experts and novices, you're more likely to get people being able to transfer that knowledge a little bit easier. Connecting it back to the business, that's always important because it shows what the business appreciates and what they value as part of your contribution. Relationships are so important, making sure that not only do you transfer the relationship during the transfer of knowledge and making sure they know who to go to, who to talk to, but that you really build that motivation and trust that has to come with all of this.
Yes.
And of course that trust then begins to evolve cultures. These all build together. And I have the perfect person up here to talk a little bit more about how you entertain and inspire as an expert.
The experts, they have to be the people part, right?
Yes.
You can't just get to the top of the expertise program and become a fellow by hoarding or by being in a dark room and designing beautiful things by yourself. You have to bring it alive for others. We have requirements for our experts. You need to mentor. You need to actually attract talent. You need to be a thought leader internally and externally. And they really do bring it alive. But even Sometimes we have to encourage those experts and
Yes.
give them ways to bring it alive. And thinking about knowledge management being connected to experts, when we talked about this before, Cindy, my thought was that knowledge management is sort of the missing piece of this puzzle. You add knowledge management, or you add the knowledge management team, or the change management team, or another adjacent discipline, and you can help them bring it alive. And this is where some of those sense-making activities and that storytelling can also play a huge part. And Cindy's got a picture that I shared with her of just one of those activities. We brought our fellows together and we wanted them to tell us, we called it Anatomy of a Fellow. What does it take to be a fellow? Because we wanted to try to identify those traits. And they just sat there. And then we said, oh no, tell us some stories about your everyday life as a fellow, when you were fellowing. And we got this amazing, diverse set of characteristics and traits that they needed to have. And then we pulled them together and teased some out of it, which are all the ones that you were already saying.
Those are highlighted.
The
yeah.
best thing is, we talked earlier in storytelling, how do you know when a story has value? And my simple and subjective answer was, sometimes you know because it comes back to you. You hear it being repeated.
Yeah.
Those fellows are still talking about that activity as they're trying to tell other people how to become a fellow or how to move up in the program.
I told Kim, I said, oh, so your fellow's related to gingerbread men. Yeah, they're so
They
cute.
did. They
I
loved
know.
it. Seriously.
Little people.
Yeah.
There you go. Anyways, yeah, so just building on what you're saying, I think this is where you get that tug of war with your organization, because all of this, with the fast pace of change, being a disruptor, you got to slow things down a little bit. And I don't think you can slow your business down. I'm not suggesting you go battle that culture, but you can get on it in Texas and get on the horse in the direction it's going. It's going really fast, and you can slowly turn it. And I think that's really the message here, is to say, find your moments where you can look at more systematic knowledge transfer and really build that in. And your experts are going to be a great place to start. First of all, you need their knowledge before they leave, because they'll tell you they're leaving and they've got 60 days, but they forgot to tell you they have 4 weeks of PTO they got to take and all of that. Yeah, and nobody really wants to do it because there was an emergency plant shut down, and they got to be, there's a lot of stuff going on there. Yeah. So this was, for those of you very young and new, this was a creation that APQC developed to suck knowledge out of the brain years ago. We tried it on Stan Garfield. It didn't work so well, but we tried. Yeah. So just to wrap up and leave you with some final thoughts, I think that we are at a place where our technology doesn't scare us as much. We can lean into the disruption of it and bring all of our tools in our toolkit and add more to it to get really clear about what we need to do. I think there's a second AI. You want to say a little bit about that?
No, you go ahead.
KM's good at this. So appreciative inquiry, this is a methodology that you use as a real positive way to strengthen the core of your organization by asking really positive things, how things are working. How might we do this again and again? You guys use it.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. Starting from what's working often allows people to better blue sky, if you will. And so I've used this actually quite a few times as a take 5 moment in a meeting that could have been contentious, to start from what's good, but also as a sense-making activity.
Yes. And remember, a lesson can be a good thing.
Yeah.
I think lessons learned kind of take on a bad connotation over the years, but they're a really good thing, and it's one of the easiest things to build in as an activity into the flow of work where people are. It's just harder then to take it away from that localized to the broader thing. No repeat. So Kim and I believe when these two come together, what you get with your experts are some amazing insights. We like to add a third AI to
3
that.
AIs.
Just because we like the trifecta.
Yeah.
So let me leave you with a couple of closing thoughts, some things I feel pretty strongly about, and want to impart that to you. So I have been listening very carefully to people talking, and everybody is saying the right things. They're saying, from my AI and technology friends and experts, you're saying you've got to bring the human in. You've got to start with people and process, and those have to be at the center of your AI strategy. I'm also hearing our knowledge managers say that. Absolutely, people and process. Couldn't agree with that more, but I'm going to disrupt you a little bit. I think you need to go actually a different way, and I think you need to focus on knowledge as your center. Because if you focus on the knowledge, it's going to guide you more than, you'll then know the right people, you'll know the right approaches, you'll know the right processes if knowledge is the center of your AI and your KM strategy. And I think it's going to give you a different lens to look at and get you really focused to make that happen. And then to always remember, in terms of unlocking all of these mysteries, people approaches make system approaches work. Thank you guys very much. Kim, it was a blast with you.
Thank you. It was a blast with you. I would add one thing. People create the knowledge. So it is always first, last, always about people.
Absolutely.
And it's about you and me today, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.